All right, perfect. Hello, hello, everyone. We'll just give it a minute for the folks to trickle in. Let's see. All right. Perfect. Hey, everyone. Welcome to today's live stream with Moving to Canada. My name is Rachel, and I'll be your host. We already have a couple of people trickling in. That's perfect. Today's topic is an exciting one as we're giving you a snapshot of what your first 100 days in Canada might look like, from what to do, what to avoid, and what to expect. So whether you've just landed or you're still in the planning stages, this session is for you. And with that, before we jump in, we'll just take a minute to let the folks trickle in. We're currently at 20 plus viewers, and that is amazing. And so while we wait, if for those that are already here, do let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I'll be keeping an eye on the chat and reading out a few shout outs. I see that we already have a couple questions here, and some have left comments from previously. We will get to that at the later part or in between our discussion points. So yeah, feel free to share where you're tuning in from. Perfect. We have someone from Texas. Hello there, PF in Texas. That's your username. Always good to have you here. We have Rebecca tuning in from California. We also have Jack from Leeds, UK. It's always good to know where we have viewers from all over the world. Taylor, 93, is tuning in from Toronto. He arrived here on an IEC on Friday last week. Congratulations.
Hopefully
what was that?
Lots of IECers.
I love that. Yes. We have Piers from the UK as well, Northampton. Kayla from Australia, and it's 2 a.m. right now. Thank you, Kayla, for hopefully your sleepless night we will make it well worth it for sure. We have Gold from Nigeria. Rusty X, who's also been plopping his questions. Thank you so much, from Germany. And Catherine from UK, now in Ontario on an IEC as well, who's arrived here 3 weeks ago. This is so great. This is a very timely topic for most of you that are tuning in. Of course, we have Hugo from Montreal. Always good to see you here, Hugo. Perfect. And finally, just to wrap things up, Cindy from Greece on an IEC who recently received their ITA. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right. So thank you to everyone who shared. It's always nice to see where everyone's tuning in from. And as mentioned, today's focus is on your first 100 days in Canada. But what makes this live stream extra special is that we're covering the 3 critical areas in your newcomer journey, which are immigration, job search, and personal finances. And the cherry on top, we've dedicated half of this live stream to answering your questions live. And so we'll be weaving some of your questions into our discussion, but we'll also have a dedicated Q&A segment toward the end. So make sure to just keep those questions handy. And as always, we'd love to hear from you. And with that, let's meet our incredible guest lineup, all from the Moving to Canada team, and all of whom have been through their own first 100 days in Canada, myself included. First up, Rebecca, if you could just put your hand up as I mentioned you. We have Rebecca, who is a regulated Canadian immigration consultant, who will walk us through the key immigration steps and the common missteps to avoid. Next up, we've Rory. Oh, sorry. Hi there. Anything to say, Rebecca, before we move on?
No, just I'm really happy to be here and joined by my colleagues. And Rachel, you need to make sure you introduce yourself as well. But everyone knows who you are already, so.
Oh, no. Rachel, Move to Canada host for today, so there you go. Next, we've got Rory, who is a licensed recruiter with deep expertise in career advice, job searching, and adjusting to Canadian work culture. How's it going, Rory?
I'm very well. Excited to be here.
Perfect. And finally, we're joined by Steph, one of our immigration writers here at Movie to Canada, who also brings a strong pulse on managing finances and budgeting as a newcomer. Hi, Steph. How's it
Hey,
going?
yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. And yeah, we're also thrilled to have this conversation supported by our bank sponsor, Scotiabank, who offers a newcomer specific program that aligns perfectly with today's topic. So, as we unravel and talk about those crucial first week steps, like opening a bank account, building your credit history, or setting up a budget, we'll highlight some of the tools and resources available to help you, including some offered by Scotiabank. All right, with that, no more commercials. Let's get into it, starting with what to expect during your very first week in Canada. Just want to quickly also just pop this disclaimer. I'll give like 5 seconds to go over it. But basically, this webinar was provided for information purposes only, and so on and so forth. All right, with that, let's rewind to day one. So your first 7 days in Canada, also known as your setup week. So pretty much everything that you do here lays the groundwork for what comes next. So let's start with the essentials. I'll highlight Rebecca first on stage. Rebecca, can you walk us through the key immigration-related documents that people should apply for right away?
Yep, absolutely. So once you're in Canada, congratulations. One of the first things that I would recommend that you do is to take a photo of your status documents and just review to make sure everything is accurate, makes sense. Although you might not need it now, it will be a lifesaver later on, and it's best to do it now whilst it is kind of top of mind and you have access to the documents. Likewise, make sure all the documents you submitted as part of your applications are organised and accessible. You won't need them now, but chances are you will need to reference them at some point in the future. So just making sure they're all organised now will save time later on. Probably one of the most important things you can do right now is just inform yourself about what you can and can't do from an immigration perspective. So are you restricted in the work you can do, who you can work for, how many hours a week you can work? Knowing what you can and can't do now avoids you overstepping without knowing, which can carry some pretty harsh consequences later on. I would also recommend that pretty much from the moment you land in Canada that you start keeping a record of your activities. Okay, this is really boring. I'm sorry. No one likes record keeping, but it will be important later on. So keep track of your travels outside of Canada, a log of your addresses and work experiences. If you're planning to apply for future statuses in Canada or renew your PR card, you will need to have reference to this log. And I always find it's easier to keep a record as you go rather than kind of thinking back what you've done over the last year or two. That can be more challenging. And finally, if you want to work in Canada, you will need a social insurance number or SIN number from Service Canada. This can be applied for online or in person, and you will need your status documents to get one of these, the SIN number. If you're on a temporary status, like a worker or a student, your SIN number will expire the day your status expires. So although not relevant in your first few days, you do want to remember that to renew your SIN if you renew or change your status in Canada.
Perfect. Thank you for breaking that down. And of course, on top of the immigration documents, you'll also need a place to stay. So whether it's a short-term rental or you're looking for long-term accommodation, there are also different paths newcomers can take when it comes to housing. And with that, I'll be calling on Steph, who will be sharing some tidbits or information around this. So thank you, Rebecca. Hi, Steph. How's it going?
Hey, not bad. So we're talking about accommodation for the first little bit. Moving to Canada, I think as a whole is fairly aligned on looking for temporary accommodation when you first land in Canada. I know that it can be a good feeling to, sign a lease, just have it sorted. But there are some drawbacks to this. Like imagine showing up to the home you've signed a lease for and realizing that the transit options aren't what you'd hoped. So you get there, you're committed for a year, and you can't get to groceries as easily as you'd hoped. So at that point you have to consider, getting a car, something like that. So expenses like that, just from not knowing the area, can really derail your plans and your finances in Canada just in those first couple of weeks. I guess like my personal experience, the first home that I was in Canada, I was there for 2 months. And then the second one, I think I was there for 3 months. So I moved around a little bit. It took me a while to find out where I wanted to be in the town that I'm in. And honestly, the town I'm in is pretty small. So even within a small town, really nailing where I wanted to be was tricky. It took me a beat to work out the city and where I wanted to be in it. So finding short-term accommodation in those first couple of weeks can really set you up for success, and just make sure you're not locked in somewhere that you don't want to be. And at this point, unfortunately, I do just have to say, like, be careful about rental scams. They're sadly quite common in Canada, and physically being here and showing up for open houses can reduce your risk of falling victim to those.
Perfect. And another important aspect of settling in is opening a bank account, especially since a lot of other things rely on it, like getting paid once you start working or setting up your phone. So Steph, can you speak on that?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest surprises it was for me, and I know it will be for people from a lot of other countries where banking tends to be on the freer side, is that checking accounts aren't always free in Canada. This can trip up some newcomers, so it's worth knowing in advance to avoid the sticker shock on arrival, and so that you can keep an eye out for no fee checking offers for newcomers. Regardless of that, it's important to set up a bank account really shortly after arriving so that you can do things like pay your phone payments and schedule your rent. So in that vein, it's helpful to look into newcomer banking programs like Scotiabank's Start Right program. It's for Canadian permanent residents who have been here from 0 to 5 years in Canada, international students, and foreign workers, since these packages are often thoughtfully designed with newcomer needs in mind.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'm quickly pulling up that specific page on the screen, but I'll also be sharing it in the chat as well, just so you guys can have a look yourselves. Perfect. And back to the presentation. Yeah, for sure. And another important aspect that's often overlooked but it is critical in your first week, is health insurance. And I know that this doesn't sound like the most exciting topic, but as for IECers, it is, and for most people, it's something that can catch people off guard. So for those that don't know, health insurance isn't automatically provided when you land. It depends on your province and your status, and sometimes there's a waiting period before you're eligible for public health care. And so at this point, let me call on Rory, who will help us or walk us through what newcomers should know about getting health coverage early on. So thank you, Steph. Here we go, Rory.
Thanks so much, Rachel. I think you've given a very good overview to start with there. So I guess the key thing, depending on whether you're arriving as a permanent resident or a temporary resident, it's really important that you do your research based on the location you intend to reside in Canada. So we have a fantastic healthcare system, but it is aligned with the province that you will reside in. So it's important to study the requirements. We did mention we have quite a few IECers. They are counted as a temporary work permit, and health insurance is mandatory for their program. It's not mandatory for every program, but it's highly recommended because you're coming to a new country. Most people may think I haven't had a serious medical incident while on holidays before, but things do happen, and you're in North America. So the healthcare system here, it's excellent, but it can be very costly if you are not insured. So it's critical that you have coverage just to cover the gaps. Some people arriving on an IEC will say, okay, I'm moving to BC, I'll be eligible for the health service plan there in a couple of months. But you also got to realize it's mandatory for your program. So it's critical that on arrival that you can show that health insurance. So we do, I suppose, on the website, you can get more details in terms of health insurance providers. At Moving to Canada, we work with insurance partners such as Cigna, which are a more premium health coverage provider. We work with Bestcoat, who provide a wide range of coverage, including visitors to Canada, global expats, super visa, and also the IEC. And then within the IEC health coverage for Europeans, we have True Traveller, which also competes with Bestcoat in the European market. And then we also have a provider called Let's Live, who compete with Bestcoat in the Australian and New Zealand market. So there's a wide range of providers listed. They're all recommended. The critical thing with health coverage is that you have the coverage and that they will pay out on the claim. So be wary that a lot of the cheaper policies have exclusions. You need to read the fine print. You need to understand, because the goal with health coverage is that if something happens, you want to make sure that you are covered for the financial loss. The key thing, I guess, for people is just to realize that accidents do happen and you're paying it. Yes, it is a cost. Moving country is expensive, but for that peace of mind, we highly recommend it to people, whether it's mandatory or highly recommended, that you research and you come to Canada and you explore the country with peace of mind, because whether you're exploring the mountains or you have a fall on a pavement, things can happen. And it's quite an important topic, because we want people to have a great experience here in this country. That's about it from me on health insurance, Rachel.
Perfect. And thank you for breaking down all the other examples. I did share a link on some of our recommended IEC health insurance providers. I did share the link in the chat. So for those of you, especially starting your IEC journey, or I have read it in some comments that they've received an ITA, or some of them are in their first couple weeks in Canada already, it's definitely worth checking out. And with that, let's move on to the next slide, which is finding your rhythm, right? Weeks 2 to 4. So once those essentials are held, the next few weeks are also crucial. And again, I'll be needing Rory for this next part. So what did this phase typically look like for someone figuring out the Canadian job market side of things?
Of course. So I suppose the first thing to acknowledge with job hunting is we have a whole host of different job hunters signing in. Some people are looking for casual work in a bar. Some people are looking to the ski hill and they just want to do anything to survive and cover the costs of their ski pass. Or you also have professionals, right? A lot of the information I'm covering today will deal with the kind of professional job hunter, but you can take it. All of these tips, I guess, are applicable to every type of job hunter. So the key, really, I think that finding career progression in Canada really requires a plan, as in it's an iterative plan where you continue to kind of improve on the process. You're going to encounter a lot of challenges in Canada, as in there can be foreign credential challenges. There could be your lack of local experience, but your success really depends on your ability to manage these issues, you know. The first thing I always recommend to people is research, as in, does the job title you're looking for exist in Canada? What are the skills required? How important is local experience? What's the exact job title and salary range that you should be targeting? Then once you've kind of gotten over the research phase or had some informational interviews, which we recommend as well, and that's like reaching out to a fellow expat or reaching out to the principal at a company or the HR director and just gathering information on your industry. People are very helpful here, so don't be shy in reaching out to people. Not everybody will respond, but if you have tact and persistence, it's amazing how successful you can be in reaching out to people higher up the ladder. The second critical component I can highlight to people is your resume. It's critical that it's a Canadian style results-focused resume. The reason we say results is a lot of people talk about the activities they're doing. It's often you read through it and it's performance neutral. So it doesn't mention your performance in the role. So remember that a results-focused resume will look back on your performance in a role and it will talk about the results achieved or the KPIs. The third critical component, I mentioned research, I mentioned resume, and then the third critical component I think is networking. So have you built a team of people to help with your job hunt? Is it just you sitting at home applying to online jobs? I highly recommend you do not do that. Sitting at home applying for online jobs and thinking it's a numbers game can become very, very frustrating. So I encourage people to network via or either virtually or in person, get out to events, use LinkedIn, find people in your diaspora, reach out to some Facebook groups, as in we've got a IEC group, we've got a PR group on moving to Canada. Try and build a team and build a knowledge and actually have people looking out for you, because doing it alone can be very satisfying, but also very frustrating when things aren't going well. But doing it with a team and building that team of people who will look out for you and advise you and you can come back to with questions, that can make the whole experience much, much easier for you. That's it from me on that topic.
Perfect. Thank you. Now let's move on to the financial side. So thank you, Rory, for all that tidbit. Let me bring in Steph. So this is also where people start spending more regularly. So can you speak to what newcomers should be doing to manage their money early on?
Yeah, so within the first month, it's, I said possible, probably probable that you'll be incurring some larger expenses, whether that's getting that first year-long rental once you've found your groove and found the place that you want for your first home in Canada, or buying furniture, or even just stocking up on kitchen essentials. During these weeks, you might be leaning a little bit more on your savings that you've arrived in Canada with. So that might mean international currency transfers. I've got a link for you in the notes, Rachel. We'll share a link from Scotiabank that might help you navigate those international currency transfers. Also, if you haven't yet set up a bank account by weeks 2 to 4, it will be even more important once you find a job. One of the first things your employer will ask for is a void check. That's not a term I had heard in Australia or my travels. And you'll need a bank account to provide those details to your employer so that you can get paid.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Let me just put this back on the screen. And yes, I've shared the webpage on international money transfers. So hopefully you guys can check that out. And perfect. Yeah. And to close this section out, let me call on Rebecca. So thank you, Steph, for your time. Rebecca, is there anything immigration related that people tend to overlook around this time? So things like timelines, renewals, or documentation that they should start planning for?
Yep, absolutely. So I mentioned this before, but maintain record keeping if you've started, or start if you haven't. So now that you've settled in, you will have an address and you should be able to start adding to those records. If you've started employment, keep all your official documents like your offer of employment and pay stubs. You might need them later on for future applications. And although it is still early days for you in Canada, you do need to start thinking about your longer term planning, especially if you're on temporary status. So start thinking about your next steps. Do you see yourself staying in Canada? Again, it is early days, but time flies and can kind of get away from you. So the more aware you are of what you want from your time in Canada, the more you can make use of that time. So that's specific to kind of like temporary statuses. For new permanent residents of Canada, if you plan to travel frequently outside of Canada for work or personal reasons, you'll need to be mindful of residency obligations. I have seen a lot of newcomers get caught out by this one. So if you're a frequent traveler, you'll just need to make sure that you satisfy residency obligations on an ongoing basis, and we'll share a link for those interested in learning more about this. And finally, I know Rory mentioned networking for employment. You can start looking to register with local newcomer settlement agencies. So depending on your status, you may be able to access free workshops that can help you get into the workforce, language support, and other networking events to help you settle. So they can be a great resource as well for you.
Perfect. Rebecca, thank you for sharing that. I did want to quickly note a comment that I saw on LinkedIn from Clifford. He did mention that the LinkedIn chat is not receiving any links, and that is specific to that platform. So we are using a streaming software which doesn't share the links on the LinkedIn live chat stream. So unfortunately, you won't be able to see that. Although we do have our YouTube chat that will show the links. And also after this video, we will be giving you guys a list of the links that we've shared along with like headers so that you'll be able to quickly identify it. But just wanted to quickly note that on Clifford's side. So hopefully that's resolved, or we will work on resolving that. But thank you for bringing that up. Now, at this point, people are usually, let's look at months 2 and 3 now. So by this point, people are usually feeling a little more settled, but they're also starting to look ahead. So Rebecca, let's start with the immigration side of things. What are some important things newcomers should be thinking about at this stage, especially around documentation or long-term status?
Yep. So you should always be aware of timelines. If you have temporary status in Canada, you should know when that status expires without even having to think about it. The last thing you need is to be kind of caught off guard a few months from now and potentially letting your status expire. If you have temporary status in Canada, you need to start planning your extension if you want to stay. And I know that might seem super early, but whether you're applying for a new temporary status or transitioning to permanent resident status, both of these streams are extremely competitive right now. So it would be wise to have a plan A and a plan B for both and start working towards them. And I know Rory is going to kind of go into career and employment in more detail, but for what I will say from an immigration perspective is that if you are on temporary status in Canada and your goal is to transition to permanent status, the employment choices that you make right now could have an impact on your ability to stay in Canada long term. So you always need to be mindful and think about any impact a job might have on your ability to stay long term in Canada. Perfect. And you only have that if you have a plan in place.
Exactly. And thank you for stressing that. And from Rory's side, from a career and employment perspective, what's your advice for newcomers who are ready to take their job search to the next level?
Yeah, that's a good one. As in, one thing I did mean to touch on, I suppose, for the initial thing is your employment status is very important, or sorry, your immigration status is very important to employers. So remember, if you are coming here on an IEC work permit, for example, it's a temporary work permit. Employers don't really like that because they realize that it's temporary. Sometimes they get to feel that you're here to see if you like it and you may not stay. So that prevents them from investing in you and your career. So it's really important if you are landing here on a temporary status that you are able to sell the long-term vision that this is how I'm going to become a permanent residency and this is where I intend to be. And you talk about 4 to 5 years rather than saying, in the recruitment world, I've heard so many good interviews where people speak really well and they answer all the questions for 45 minutes. The employer's really into them. And next thing they get asked the question, how long are you going to be around? Which is a very abrupt question, but that's the worry they have. And then if you don't answer that question well, some people say, well, I've just arrived, so I'm going to take it as it goes. That's a fail straight away. No company is going to invest in you if they think that you could be gone in 6 months' time. So as you get to that 2-3 month period as well, as realize that employers investing in you is a factor of how well you're able to present yourself as an investable long-term asset. So when it comes to career planning, I always kind of say is keep if you arrive on your IEC and you've secured a job, start planning for permanent residency early and communicate that to your hiring manager, or communicate that if you're still job hunting or new employers. Tell them that this is your intention, that you've come to Canada. You're initially a little bit unsure, but now you've explored the Rockies, or you spent 2 months in Toronto, or you spent some time wherever you are, and you said, I love it here. I want to stay here. I want to find a long-term career, and I've taken the action. I've sat down with an immigration consultant, or I've done the research via moving to Canada, and my plan is to apply for PR via Canadian Experience Class, or whichever program that is a fit for your needs. So that's really critical in terms of career planning, especially for professionals, right? In terms of upskilling, your ability to secure your long-term status really depends on how much your employer will invest in you. There was also a mention of jobs boards. I think jobs boards are great for research. I would avoid applying online where possible. I don't care how much the company says we don't accept any applications. It's your job to network your way to a contact at each company. Give yourself a challenge. To me, applying online is a sign of a failure for networking purposes. So I really encourage people to network your way via LinkedIn, via contacts, reaching out via your diaspora, and find a person who can introduce you to the hiring manager or HR. And then in terms of, I guess, long-term employment strategies, I think a lot of people, the big question is, if you need to make a change, should you make it when you arrive in Canada, or should you do what you've been doing for the last 5-10 years and then make a change? That really depends on it. But I always say the key for people is to do their research on that. Ask for a review with your employer every 3 to 6 months. Ensure it happens. Look after yourself. Make sure you're getting solid feedback. You can also ask more provoking questions like, what do I need to be doing in 6 months' time, or what do I need to be doing in 12 months' time to be working this title X? Or what do I need to be doing to be earning $10,000 more in 12 months' time? So the sky is the limit in terms of the Canadian employment market, but just remember, it's quid pro quo in terms of you need to invest in being in Canada long term, and then they will invest in you, and in clear communications on your intentions. Because remember that every time somebody arrives as an immigrant, there's always settlement risk, or flight risk as I call it. So they're always worried that the person won't settle, and that they will waste their investment on somebody who returns home after a year or two. So try to think in terms of what the employer's worries are, and try to reassure them with your communications in the interview, in your reviews, and then then your career can be a huge success in Canada. That's it from me, Rachel.
Perfect. Rebecca, did you have anything to speak on for those that are on temporary status and their goal to transition to PR in terms of the employment side of things? Oh, you're on mute.
I'd mentioned just briefly that you do want to, the employment choices you make will impact your long-term ability. But I do also want to add to what Rory mentioned about career planning and assuming your employer knows about immigration. So the best thing you do is assume that your employer doesn't know about immigration, and so you go in informed, and that starts by informing yourself. So that's my little addition. The more informed you are, the more likely it is that you'll persuade your employer that you have this long-term plan which can come true.
Perfect. All right. And for Steph, on the financial front of things, maybe this is where people start thinking about long-term stability. What should newcomers know about managing their money and building credit at this point?
Yeah, so by month 2 or 3, you've potentially started working, or at least have some a bit more routine and stability. So it can be really helpful to have a budget, and budgeting tools can really help you with both creating a budget and staying on track. Some banks, including Scotiabank, have budgeting tools that really streamline the creation and progress analysis process of creating a budget. It's also a good time 2 to 3 months in to start working on your credit score in Canada. This is a huge topic, so I won't be able to do it justice in the time that we have here, but I'd love to share 2 links at this point. One is from Scotiabank about their Nova Credit program. It's a program that can help eligible newcomers access higher credit limits using their credit history from their home country. So I think that is on the screen now, and the link might be available on certain platforms. I have seen the notes coming in about LinkedIn. We're working on something hopefully in the back end, but if not, just jump over to YouTube and you can grab the links there. And the second link that I'd love to share is from our website on building your credit history. I found this one really helpful. It's a really detailed guide. So I suggest checking that one out as well. And I know that, taking small steps to build your credit score and creating a budget at this point may seem like small steps, potentially too small, but they really do lay the groundwork for bigger goals you might have later. So they're foundational in everything that you need to do, like for buying your first home, saving for your child's education, all those big things.
I just wanted to add something here. Talking about credit score in Canada, just kind of my own experience. So I arrived in Canada in 2010 on the IEC permit. And one of the first things I did was went to get a phone plan because I needed a phone, right? And I get there, like the young 20-something-year-old I am. I'm just like, okay, can I have a phone plan, please? And they're like, sure. And they run my credit history. And of course, I don't have any credit history. So they would not give me a phone plan. And I was so confused. I'm from the UK originally. I never imagined that was a thing. And so maybe you were all aware of credit history and the importance of it, but I know as a young individual, I didn't know the true impact it would have on my ability just to do things. So the sooner you start building your credit history, the better. Otherwise, you kind of just have to find these constant workarounds for things.
Yeah, I think I got lucky. I just got a prepaid plan because I thought that if I got a postpaid plan that I would be locked in for a certain period of time. Yeah. So I just went prepaid to start off with, and they won't run a credit check.
That's a good idea. So I didn't, because I didn't know. I didn't think about it, I guess.
Yeah, it wasn't an idea. It was just dumb luck. So yeah, building that credit history from early on, it's tricky, but it's so important if we want to do things as basic as getting a phone plan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in terms of perfect timing, this is a good leeway to shout out Scotiabank, today's webinar sponsor, because they've put together a bunch of tools and resources that speak directly to newcomers figuring this out. So if you want tips on how to manage your money or start building credit here in Canada, they've created a kind of a financial roadmap that you can opt into receiving. You can sign up to receive emails from them where you can get access to helpful tools, resources, and advice to guide you through your banking journey as you settle into your new life in Canada. I'll plop it somewhere on the screen as well. But with that, it looks like there's a lot of questions that have trickled in. So let's take a breather here and check in on your questions. I'll pull everyone up from the team. Just to have everyone's input. So if you have questions about jobs, immigration, finances, etc., now is the time to ask. We got our team here, bringing insight from their own lived experiences and areas of expertise to help guide you. So I'll just scroll up from above to see what questions have trickled in. Also just want to say thank you to the 50 plus audience that we have here. It's always good to see that the topics that we're sharing are helpful to you guys. So I'm really happy that you're all here. We have a question from Clifford. I've submitted my PR package 2 weeks back. I have a home in Cape Breton. My wife is a citizen. Not sure where the question is there, but
sorry, Rachel, I think there was a follow-up just about whether a SIN would be needed.
There we go.
Yeah.
Once I'm a permanent, do I need a SIN?
Yeah, and I think there was a caveat in the comment that there was no plan to, I guess, work or access healthcare. There are other things that you do need a SIN for. So if you want to open a bank account in Canada, a lot of the time they'll ask you for your SIN number at that point. And yeah, I believe sometimes is it required for like driver's licensing and that kind of thing, or do they just require your permit? Does anyone remember? Oh, you're on mute, Rebecca.
Rebecca, you're on mute.
I don't know about that, but I would just say I think it's wise to have a SIN, even if you don't initially plan on working, just for in case something happens in the future. If you need it for taxes, you might want to file taxes at some point for some reason.
Well, you might need to file taxes if you pass the residency requirement. Yeah, so it's worth having. You can apply online, or you can apply in person and get one really in just a few minutes. The service center isn't too busy, so it's a very low barrier to entry to get the SIN.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. The next question is from Christo. I want to know how I can arrive in Canada. I am qualified candidate for CEC. So this relates to like maybe his immigration pathways. Anyone like to speak on that?
Without knowing kind of the ins and outs of exactly where you are. So if you qualify for the CEC program or a PMP, you'll have to enter the express entry pool. So you'll have to submit an application, and whether you are successful will be dependent on how you rank once you're in the pool. So we do have many resources on our website which go into what you should do to enter the express entry pool, how you can optimize your profile once in the pool, and what you can do if you are selected. So I recommend that you check out those resources.
The next question is from Heather. Can you talk about landing and settling? I'm a Canadian citizen who has only ever lived in the US. I'll be sponsoring my husband.
I mean, I can take this one from an immigration perspective. If you are a Canadian citizen, so if you have proof of your Canadian citizenship, you can sponsor your husband from living outside of Canada. You just need to show an intent to move back to Canada once he has received his PR status. And I guess as far as landing and settling, choosing a province of where you want to stay can have some implications on your immigration application. So if you are wanting to settle in the province of Quebec, then you will have to apply to the Quebec government as part of your sponsorship application, which is not great right now. So if you have the flexibility to move anywhere, don't move to Quebec right now if you're pursuing family sponsorship.
Now we have a question from Jack. If I only plan to stay for 1 year on my IEC and don't have a long-term plan to stay in Canada, what's the best type of job to get? This seems like a question for Rory.
Sorry, I know it's a question.
Whoever.
I will just say that you really do never know what's going to happen. And so even if your intention isn't to stay, and I mean, I think Steph can comment on this. I don't think she had an intention to stay when she came to Canada. She stayed and she's been here for several years. You don't know what you want and what in a year's time that might change. So it is always best just to kind of think about it and make sure any job you choose could work towards permanent status. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I will jump in. I had a visa pending in another country when I first came to Canada. So I just came for a quick visit. I thought maybe I would stay for a couple of months, and here I am 6 years later with no intention of going anywhere.
The other critical thing for Jack is I'm noting that he plans to stay for 1 year of his 2-year work permit. So maybe he's planning to get 1 year of health insurance. So fast forward, Jack, visualize yourself 6 months into Canada, you stop comparing everything and you start living your Canadian life and you start to love it here and you go, hell yeah, I might do another ski season or I might do another summer, or I'm actually quite liking it here. You cannot use the second year of your work permit. So I encourage you to get to 2 years, see it as an investment in the option to stay. The good news, actually, I don't know where Jack is. I was assuming he's UK, but there's no evidence there. So UK residents can apply again, but it's very rare. If Jack is Irish or any other nationality, you get one kind of go at your IEC, and it's just a special case now for the British citizens that they can do up to 3 years at their IEC. So, Jack, I would encourage you to invest in the second year of health insurance and keep your options open. There's so much to love. It doesn't really matter what you're into in Canada. It's a new country, a new exploration, and most you'll see on our forums, there's lots of regrets, as in I only got X amount of travel insurance. I have to go, how do I change it? And sadly, there's no way of changing things like that. So I encourage people to think long term and just invest in the idea that you'll absolutely love it here.
Yeah, poor Jack. None of us have answered his question yet. What's the best type of job for him to get? Young Guns. We work with a company called Young Guns, and they have employed many IEC workers, and so it is a great. It's a great company. They have locations across Canada. They do again employ a lot of IEC workers. It's mainly manual labor. And if you are kind of planning on staying long term, it wouldn't necessarily help you with your long term immigration strategy. But if you are kind of just looking for a job where you work hard, get a decent salary, and kind of meet some great people, Young Guns often comes out on top with our community. But Rory, I'll let you expand on jobs.
Yeah, I think it really depends. And the fact that he's open to anything is I would just keep, invest in a good, in a strong resume. Try to figure out what you enjoy doing, but there's loads of options. As in, if you look at the surveys, as in like admin assistants is one of the most sought after roles in Canada right now. And there's lots of casual work. Rebecca mentioned Young Guns if you want something a little bit more physical but social. So yeah, there's a really wide array. So I would probably just start doing a little bit of research, or maybe listen to what you are interested in, what skills you have, and we'll be very happy to give you some further advice if we kind of know what you want, what you like doing.
The next question that we have is, since we were talking on IEC insurance lately, Martin asked, is it necessary to look for another? He already has IEC insurance, but is it recommended to have another option?
No, absolutely not. So if you have the mandatory IEC insurance, there's no need. So the IEC insurance would be considered private insurance, and so is Cigna. There would be no need to invest in both. And just a note for people in case they're looking up, Cigna is very much a premium health offering, so it's a very expensive one. And if you're looking for something cost effective in the IEC market, we recommend Best Coat, True Traveler, and Let's Live if you're looking at the Australian or the New Zealand market. So really depends on what Martin's needs are, but there's absolutely no need to have two separate private insurance policies.
Perfect. This is a comment from Hope. How come on the Moving to Canada website you can't log in anymore? The personalized checklist was amazing.
I can take this one. So we recently changed systems, which means that we don't have a login anymore, but we are about to publish the checklist that we have online. If you let me know whether you wanted the IEC one or the Express Entry one, I can send it to you. If you email me at rebecca@movingtocanada.com, we'll send it out to you.
Perfect. Next question. Just scrolling down here. Catherine just shared in the chat that there were days I was able to open a postpaid account with Fido to start building my credit history. No credit history needed. So there are some promos with some phone providers. So it is something worth checking out, but it's good to know that, you're with Fido. A couple other options out there. UV was asking if this will be saved. It will be available on the platforms afterwards. So it will live on YouTube and LinkedIn currently. So you'll be able to watch that. From Carl, how to know which companies, businesses are okay with closed work permits when we're in the IEC Young Professionals program?
We recently actually published an article on how you can talk to your employer about supporting a young professional's work permit, which might be really useful. Again, I don't commenting on which companies, businesses are okay. I guess it's hard to determine. Generally, if there's a need for hiring, so if there is a shortage of workers, one of the biggest things that companies are put off by is the unknown. They don't know what they need to do for a closed work permit. They don't know how they can support you. They kind of just think of this as a headache because there's so much to think about. And again, that's why if you're informed, it will help them come to a decision. And so the best thing you can do is be informed, reach out to them with the right information. So we did, as I said, we published, I think, a blog post on this maybe a few weeks ago. I would recommend that you take a look at our blog post, and I will also just push our newsletter right now. So as I said, we did post about this a couple of weeks ago on our website. But anyone that subscribes to our newsletter did receive early access to this. So that's the benefit of receiving our newsletter, is that you do get early access to things like this that we post. But I would recommend checking out that blog post.
Perfect. And I'll also just quickly plop, like, for those of you that do want to sign up to our newsletter, it's as simple as going to our landing page, movingtocanada.com, and on there you'll be able to input your email and sign up. So there's loads of helpful, like, updates on immigration and everything about settling in Canada. So be sure to sign up for our newsletter. Perfect. Let me see what questions we have here. What are the best routes in terms of going for PR from an IEC perspective? Levi from UK.
Again, I'll take this one. I think it really depends on, so immigration options are so personal and it's really hard to kind of give a blanket statement. We do have a quiz on our website which will help you determine which options are available to you. Just because you're from the UK doesn't necessarily mean you've got an advantage. The good thing is you've got the ability to work, to gain some Canadian experience. I would initially encourage you to look at the Canadian Experience Class program, which runs through the Express Entry system. If not, if you are working in Canada, take a look at some provincial programs offered within the province that you work. So it's not kind of a given that you will be successful in a transition to permanent residence, but generally speaking, IECers do kind of stand a good chance when it comes to transitioning to permanent residence. But again, being informed early on, starting to plan out. If you know that you want to transition to permanent residence, you will really have to think about your next steps, your long-term strategy, because everything you do will play into that. But I would start by looking at CEC and then expand from there to provincial programs, starting with the province where you work.
I'll just jump in quickly as well. I fairly regularly write about the current state of the Express Entry pool, which is where the CEC program falls. At the moment, competition is extremely high. And I mentioned on a recording that I did the other day, just that it's going to be quite tricky with just two years. So even if you land in Canada, start working that day, and then you stop working the 2 years later when your IEC permit expires, with just 2 years of work experience, it's going to be quite competitive. So I think coming in and just taking a really good look at what the program requirements for the Express Entry and the Canadian Experience Class, what they are, find out what your CRS score is as early as you can, and then as early as you can start working on steps that you can take to improve it, whether it's nailing the language scores, maybe learning a little bit of French. Like 2 years is a good amount of time to learn French to pass the requirements. But if you just come in with no foreign work experience, maybe a little bit of university, and then do the 2 years of work experience in Canada, it's going to be fairly tricky as the pool currently stands, and as we expect it to stand at least for 12 more months. Things may start to ease towards the end of 2026, but it does seem that it's going to be very competitive. So start planning as early as you can.
And speaking of, we did have a question from Taylor. Do you have any information on any programs or support for learning French? We did have, we are partnered with Focus Frame French, and they offer like online French classes. So let me just quickly pull that up on screen. But we actually also have a page for, especially for those that are in the express entry stage and they're looking to boost their score. We do have a very helpful guide on how to boost your score, and where we also mention like helpful resources that support learning for French or even like boosting your English scores. So I'll plop that in the screen.
I will say right now, to add to Steph's point, learning French is a really excellent way to try and boost your score and open up options to move to Canada. So I know it sounds pretty overwhelming, but it remains one of the things that you have the most control over. You can learn French in a year's time and probably be sufficient enough to be considered in French draws, which are less competitive now, but not necessarily in the future. So, yeah.
The next question is from Rebecca. How soon after express entry PR can I attend a school? The program I want to do is for PR or citizens only.
Just confirming, so this would be if you got your permanent residency through express entry. I think this would be down to a provincial, maybe you're referring to kind of tuition fees, whether you are considered a local student or not. I think that would be down to the program that you are intended to study in the school, because I know some schools have different fees for local students, for new local students and international students. So I think that would be down to the individual school.
Perfect.
And sorry, also just on this, if your permanent residency application has been approved, you won't be a permanent resident until you activate that status. So you just also need to make sure that you've activated the status if you're looking for like an online course and stuff.
From Titan, is it difficult to approach any of the company in Canada for jobs? Is there any easy or assured way with which we can apply for the job?
I'm just trying to process. Is there any assured way with which we can apply for a job? Well, your resume is the primary job document. So I would make sure that you put together the best possible resume. I focused on it earlier. I focused on results. So whether you are a cashier in a supermarket, or whether you're bartending, or whether you're working in a professional job, as in there are results associated with your job. So try to not to get lost in the daily and the weekly activities, and try to think of the bigger picture, right? As in, so focusing on results, presenting it in a Canadian style resume template. The 1-page resume is a myth. Two pages is just fine. Try to keep it to 2 or 3 if you have a lot of experience. And then I guess for Titan, the final thing is just try and think of networking instead of job boards. The greatest complaint I get from newcomers is I've sent out 50 online applications. I've heard nothing, and they're about to have a mental breakdown, because it is very tough, as in when you're not getting feedback on your time and your investment. So try to think of ways that you can network. I talked about building a team. Try to use tools such as social media, or find out who's hiring newcomers, right? As in, I know Rebecca mentioned Young Guns as in a partner we work with. They actively look for newcomers. So instead of trying to get over the immigration obstacle or the Canadian experience obstacle, think about the people who want to hire newcomers and try to find those people. and try and network your way and just have engagement with people. Talking to somebody is the best way to get feedback. Online applications it's a bit of a vortex, and you rarely get feedback on your application. So hopefully that helps, Titan.
You always say, Rory, don't spray and pray. Which
Exactly.
Don't. I'm surprised you didn't say it. Don't just apply left, right, and center. Really kind of actively think about why you're applying for a role, research the company, and by doing that, you'll make your application stronger just by showing the connection. So don't just send out thousands of resumes and then be disappointed. Really take the time to apply for the jobs that you want and that you can do.
It's like that. It's like that bingo analogy, right? As in, the job requirements are the numbers for the game. If your resume doesn't contain the same numbers, if you're not feeding back why you're a fit, right? So I think the concept is tailoring your resume, right? Try to understand what the company does and try to communicate why you want to work for the company. Cover letters are not compulsory, but always appreciated, because they're putting a little bit of the time into connecting why you should pick me amongst the other candidates. And that can really make a difference in a competitive job market. So Steph, I'll let you jump in there as well.
Yeah, another part of my job is writing about the labor market in Canada once a month whenever Statistics Canada releases its data. And I think maybe an overlooked element of it is just choosing where you live a little bit more thoughtfully. I know that, before I came to Canada, before I started looking into it, I'd heard of like Banff, Toronto, Vancouver. That was about it. Maybe Montreal as well. If you arrive to and only plan to live in one of those big places, it's possibly going to be harder to get a job. I know Toronto's job market at the moment is really competitive. I did see a couple of questions from like software engineers, and my understanding is there's a bit of a glut in terms of the people who are out of work already in Canada and looking for tech jobs. So thinking outside the box when it comes to where you land in Canada can really pay off. Like Saskatchewan, it's not probably like the sexiest province in terms of international reputation, but its job market has been performing really well for the last little while. So doing research and thinking outside of Toronto and Vancouver, if you're really committed to coming to Canada and getting into a role that sort of suits your background, that can be really helpful.
So Steph, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we wrote on this recently about where you choose to live for jobs. So also take a look at our blog post, because I think we do have some coverage on that as well.
Yeah, that was more to do with the LMIA availability.
But I think it's a really important consideration, which not many people would actually be aware of. So I think it would be good for people to check that out as well, if you can.
Yeah. And I update those. I think it's around every couple of months whenever the federal government updates its LMIA availability for the low wage positions. So that is sort of getting constant coverage. But if you do look at that list, it does provide a list of cities, and not just small cities. They're sort of major CMA ones where it's got, I think, 100,000 people or more, but with unemployment rates under 6%. So that's a good way to get into towns that aren't just way out in the boonies with like 3 other people, but where unemployment rates are a little bit lower and competition for those jobs is a little bit lower in those places as well.
Just wondering if it's a particular post that we're referring to.
No, that's not the one.
Okay, I tried.
I'll grab the link and drop it in the comments.
For sure. Thank you.
Rachel, I was just going to jump in and answer Monique's question here. Do I need to include referees on my resume? I always delete references from a thing. I just see it's a stage in the job hunt, but it's taking up valuable space in your resume. So if you are in a professional job hunter, or sometimes even a casual job hunter, just assume that your future employer may want to talk to your past employers. So What I would do around that is reach out to any references that you are planning to share their details on. It's a subtlety here. Some people don't read the room and can have a bad reference. So I would reach out to someone and say, would you be willing to provide a positive job reference for my future job hunt in Canada? They will say no if they're not willing to provide a positive one. And just give them a heads up when it might come to time for reference checking, but do not waste any space on your resume. It's just something that people will think about, and it's seen as a step after when they're about to make a job offer. That's when the references will come up. So good luck with that, Monique.
Perfect. All right. So I'll be entertaining maybe the last 5 questions. So let me just quickly scroll. But I did want to quickly share this on our screen. This is our Getting Started guide. So it's actually a downloadable PDF guide that touches on everything that we've talked about and pretty much summarizes all the things that you will need to get set up once you land in Canada. So I'll be sharing the screen below, but did anyone want to talk about like the contents or what people can expect when they download our Getting Started guide?
Yeah, I can quickly touch on this. It's basically just kind of like someone referenced our checklists. It's kind of along that same idea. It's basically just kind of giving you information on things that you need to know, things you need to consider. It covers immigration, employment, and settling in Canada kind of under one document. We've had this around for several years. We update it annually, and it has helped thousands of people. So I would recommend taking a look at this. Absolutely.
Question from Heather. How do you figure out the value of items you're bringing into Canada? The price I paid for them, the cost to replace them?
This is in reference to when you do land in Canada, you have to declare the value of things you're bringing in to Canada. I don't know if there's like an official line here, but I would personally do the cost to replace them because I'm not going to pay full price for something that's 5 years old. I don't know though. There's probably an official. Does anyone have any insight on this?
I did take a quick look into the CBSA. I think there's fairly broad exemptions for like personal property that you've owned for more than 6 months. So maybe just dig through the CBSA website a little bit more strongly. But none of us, I think, carried our items across the border. I at least arrived with a small backpack and some help from there.
Yeah.
That's a tough question, Heather. You've absolutely stumped us.
Well, I think if it's new, absolutely, it has to be like market value, but there's probably some leniency in items that are used or for I know, and again, for personal use, if it's a commercial, then it's very different, but for personal use, I think it would be more cost to replace, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think one of the keynotes is to itemize everything as well. That can make the border crossing really a lot more seamless. I remember Sarah talking about that.
Perfect. What are the necessary steps? This is more like, again, related to PR. Necessary steps to take in applying for PR once in Canada on a work permit via Francophone mobility.
I think you just have to. So this is a special work permit for applicants who have some French language ability. So you want to make sure that you review the program requirements for the Francophone mobility program. They are different. You need the employer sponsor as well. So just take a look at what those requirements are and make sure you kind of submit everything that needs to be submitted.
Yeah, potentially also look at the Francophone community regional pilot because that does offer a TR to PR pathway where, correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, but the Francophone mobility is just the temporary work permit, and then you've kind of got to work it out from there. Yeah,
exactly. So I read that message to think that they applied through the Francophone community. So if you did apply through the Francophone mobility, you're right, Steph, thanks for that. That's just the work permit. But if you are a French speaker, you have many different immigration options available. So the Francophone community program, you have the French express entry draws that you can consider. As I said before, French is a really good way to stay in Canada. And this guy's kind of highlighted, get your initial work permit. So just review all the options that prioritize French. And that would be the community, the Francophone draws from Express Entry.
Perfect. From Ollie, do you recommend using temporary work agencies to get your foot in the door or in a company, specifically if you want to stay long-term beyond IEC?
It's an option. Yeah, definitely. Like, I guess if you are in, say, for example, you're looking for professional work with a particular brand. I'll just jump at an example in Vancouver, Lululemon. You want to work with Lululemon. You've applied for jobs, you can't get in the door in whatever profession you're in, if you're in supply chain or whatever. Yes, absolutely, going in as with a temp agency as an admin person into that job or into that company specifically could be a great Trojan horse kind of job hunting mechanism, right? So it really depends on the person, but like you got to understand with temp agencies, it's volatile. You're getting probably paid less. The recruiter is getting a cut for every hour you're working. But it is an option to kind of keep in mind in terms of things. So I would typically recommend that people would apply directly depending on the specific role. But if it is in the area of admin is one example where there is a lot of temp agencies prevalent. I'm trying to think of another one, but I would typically focus on applying directly to the company and then just use temp agencies as maybe as a plan B, or if your field is temp work agency dominated, then you can go with that. So sorry, Ollie, that's a little bit of a mixed answer, but I think it really depends on the actual skills that you have and the role that you're looking for. So feel free to give us a shout.
Also, consider if temporary work is the right type of work for you long term as well. Just part of the immigration plan.
All right. And I guess that wraps up the Q&A portion. Thank you guys for sharing all your questions. And I know that there's still a couple of questions in the comments as well. But the good news is we are starting sharing bi-weekly live Q&A sessions with the community. And so it's as simple as like subscribing to our channel on our YouTube channel, specifically Moving to Canada, where we'll get to chat with you guys some more about certain stages in your immigration journey, whether that's IEC related or Express Entry related. We definitely find value in tapping into our community and seeing where they're at, and of course, like connecting you with the resources that we already exist on our website and newsletter to make sure that you make informed decisions. So there's that. To quickly recap, your first 100 days in Canada are a foundation. So just take things 1 week at a time. Just focus on the essentials. Give yourself grace, and of course, take advantage of the tools and support systems available to you. If you are looking for more guidance beyond today's conversation, also take a look at our website, movingtocanada.com, which we've built for you to be your go-to resource hub. We have free tools to getting started guides to resume templates, and we've pretty much like covered everything that you need to stay informed and empowered. And once again, for those that are tuning in that aren't able to access the links, I will be quickly updating the YouTube description with all the relevant links that we've mentioned. So make sure to hop on. This live session will be immediately available on YouTube. It might take a while to load, but we will be making sure to include all the relevant links that we've mentioned there. And finally, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter as well to get regular updates tailored to newcomers. It's really one of the best ways to stay in the loop. And finally, if you are sorting out your finances or you just want to get a better understanding of how banking works in Canada, we've actually teamed up with Scotiabank again, which is sponsor of today's live stream, to help with exactly that. You can opt into the to their emails to get tips, tools, and advice tailored for newcomers. It's really all designed to make this part of your journey feel a little less overwhelming. And with that, thank you, Rebecca, Rory, and Steph, and everyone who joined today. And also special thanks to Scotiabank for making this conversation possible. Any
Thanks so much.
final tidbits or words of or advice for all those watching, maybe in the areas that you've covered, just to send them off?
I think my last advice is just remember we have forums. There's a Facebook forum for IEC and PR. If there's anything you missed or you want to just hear other people's experiences and things like that, and don't forget to subscribe, because it's an ever-changing landscape, and we're looking forward to helping you be successful in Canada.
Yeah, I'll jump out with just I'd love to see you subscribe to the newsletter. We put together these resources and send them out in a really timely way. So yeah, we can help you, and I guess you can help us feel good with improved open rates.
We work really hard to make sure that we are keeping you guys up to date. And I think that was pretty evident in some of the things that we covered today. So check out the Moving to Canada blog posts. Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. See you all in the next live chat, and all the best in your journey to Canada. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.